بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله وصحبه حق قدره ومقداره العظيم أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أفضل الخلق وأحسن الخلق وأكمل الخلق اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد نورك ساري والمددك جاري واجمعني به في كل أطوار وعلى آله وصحبه يا نور الحمد لله. Okay, so yesterday we reached, we're on page 35 of the book, for those who are following with the book. We reached the section on the danger of sort of laziness or delay in service to this message, in service to the message of the Quran, in service to the Messenger himself. So like we mentioned in previous classes, the most effective or the quickest way for us to arrive at the divine presence, the quickest way for us to arrive at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through service, is through actually serving the Rasul and through actually bringing some type of service to fruition within our lives. So through serving the Rasul, we'll be able to arrive at the divine presence. So therefore, if that's the case, then our service to the Rasul should be immediate. It should be devoid of any type of laziness or any type of takasul, any type of delay or any type of lassitude of any sort, of laxity of any sort. Yeah, inshallah. So he's looking, so he mentioned khatru takasul wa tawani fi khidmat risala. So this, as we mentioned, this relates to our own selves, which is our biggest obstacle. Like the ulama of spirituality, they differ, although essentially it's the same, to be honest, but there's that almost like a difference on what are the four enemies of man. If you break it down and we look at it in detail, essentially it's the same thing. It's just the way that it's been differentiated. So some will say the four enemies of man are nafs, hawa, shaitan, and dunya. Yeah, your nafs, your own self, your caprice or your passions, yeah, the devil, and this temporary world that distracts us instead of calling us to God. Others will say, no, the four enemies, Imam Ghazali, he will say the four enemies are what? It's your nafs, it's shaitan, it's dunya, and it's khalq, it's other people. Really, the essence of it is the same. It just depends on how you look at it. Some people will say dunya includes other people. Other people will say, no, other people are a separate category. These are the differences amongst the scholars. Or some will say that the nafs also includes your hawa, includes your caprice, your empty passions, your stubbornness in a worldview, or your stubbornness in an idea that you know is false. All of this is within nafs. So it just depends on how we differentiate it. The bottom line is that we have enemies. The weakest of those enemies is actually shaitan. Yeah, like the non-human devils. The non-human devils are actually the weakest enemy. Yeah, these devils which come and whisper. Yeah, wasawis, just general whisperings. And they also have these strategies. They'll try to make you not do actions or delay. Yeah, like we're talking about here, delaying, taswif, procrastination. Yeah, to delay doing good. Yeah, they'll try to do that. They'll try to make you do things with haste. So do an action, but do it quickly, so you lose itqan, you lose perfection. You lose presence of heart, you lose the actual lub, the essence of the matter, and you end up focusing on speed or trying to get the action done, yeah, rather than actual perfection, quality, as opposed to quantity. Yeah, so the devils will do this, and they have their various stratagems, but really they're very weak. Yeah, the stratagem of the devil is da'if, is weak in nature. So we have that, and then the second enemy that they then mention is the dunya. This ephemeral world, which really is, in terms of the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, this is what the Prophet ﷺ feared for us. As we find in the sound hadith in Bukhari, that he says, I do not fear shirk for you. I do not fear polytheism. Yeah, I do not fear that you will become mushrikeen, that you will associate partners with God. I do not fear. This is the words of the Sadiq al-Masduq. Number one, it's the words of the Prophet ﷺ. Now, The words of the Prophet ﷺ are wahi, revelation. In huwa illa wahyu yuha. Yeah, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. He doesn't speak from passion, it is only revelation, manifest. Now, so the question then is, did the Prophet ﷺ say that or not? If he said it, then everyone accepts that is the case. Yeah? If the Prophet ﷺ has said it's wahi, it's true. So he said that. Now, did he say, well, it's in Bukhari. It's in Bukhari, which is the soundest narration. So now, if you're going to historically verify it, it's true. Yeah, it's true, because this is in Bukhari, which is 100% sound, or 99.9%. It's not mutawatir, granted, but it's the Sahih hadith in Bukhari is rigorously authenticated. Yeah, so it's a 99.9% chance that he said it, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if he said it, it's true. So what did he say? He said, I do not fear shirk for you. So why are you worried about Muslims committing shirk? By saying that, it really means that we have doubt in the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and in his wisdom. Yeah, which is obviously impossible, inconceivable, unimaginable. So he says, I do not fear shirk for you. But what I do fear is that the world, this dunya, will be opened up for you and you'll compete over it. You'll compete and you'll strive and fight in the dunya. Now, so this is the second end. Like, this is the weakest one is shaitan. The second weakest, but still obviously carries a lot of strength, is the dunya, yeah, which has distracted many of us. It's absorbed our time, our energy, our efforts, our thoughts, our very beings, our souls, our lives, our physical, mental, and spiritual faculties have been completely exhausted. How many a man have you lost to the dunya? Yeah, I remember many years ago attending. I used to do regular mawlids in one of the local towns. And there was a brother there, mashallah, who started to attend the mawlids, and he was really, mashallah, really intelligent. He studied quite a bit Islamically, and he would recite the mawlid beautifully too, mashallah. And then it came to a certain stage where he said, I have to leave now. I'm not going to be able to continue with the mawlid. And we were understandably, oh, that's a real shame, mashallah. Of course, it's all in Allah's hands. Allah sends people, Allah removes people, etc. But it was natural. The natural reaction was, oh, you're going, that's a real shame. So how come you need to go? And he said, I've been offered a job at a really good chartered accountancy firm. So because of this job, I'm going to move out of the area and I'm no longer going to be able to serve my local community. He said, I'd love to serve them, but I just can't because I've been given this job opportunity. Which obviously in and of itself is mashallah. There's nothing wrong with that in particularly, but what can often happen is when you go into that world, the corporate world, it's 60, 70, 80 hours a week. You're no longer then going to have the time to dedicate to anything else in any seriousness, whether it's knowledge, whether it's your own spiritual state, to elevate it, whether it's khidmah, service of humanity, whether it's da'wah, calling other people to Islam, whatever khair it might be, it becomes distracted. I remember a few years back, my wife speaking to one of her teachers, who even something, she was saying that anything at all that distracts, any type of element that distracts you from this work, from the work of khidmah and da'wah, is problematic. So she said you should remove anything such that you can wholeheartedly dedicate your life to this work and to becoming people that transform societies around them and change the world around them. So this is dunya, it's a big one. And then the one after that, the second strongest, the second strongest enemy of man is khalq, is other people. Other people are a grave veil to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such that some of them, like Habib Ali Ajifri, he said that 90% of spiritual disease is due to other people, or 90% of veils, 90% of the barriers or obstacles to Allah are due to other people. Why is that? I'll give you an example. Envy. Envy is one of the ummahatul muhlikat. It's one of the foundations of one of the foundational destructive vices. Something that destroys the human being on a fundamental level is envy. Envy is due to other people. You want other people to lose their blessings. Yeah, you want other people to lose their blessings, which Allah gave them. But that's other people. So therefore, why is it an issue? Because you're thinking about what other people have. So the fact that other people are in your heart now means you want them to lose their blessings, and now is actually leading to your own destruction. It's devouring your good deeds, just like fire devours dry wood. That's envy, yeah? Or ostentation, showing off, displaying your deeds. That's other people. Other people are in your heart. You want to impress them. You want to have a status amongst people. Hubul jah, hubul riyas, a love of leadership, love of position. You want that. So again, other people. Arrogance. You think you're better than someone else. Why are you even thinking about the rank of someone else and where you are in comparison to them? It's because all these veils are being placed due to the fact that you're giving some type of thought or some type of direction towards other people. There we can see this is the essence of it. So once we remove the khalq, creation around us, then it allows us to approach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala much more directly. Yeah, so other people are a distraction. At the same time, like you mentioned, other people are a vehicle for us to attain divine pleasure too. It's all about our own perspective, our own mushahada. What are we witnessing? What are we seeing when we look upon other people? What are we seeing? Are we seeing beauty? Are we seeing opportunities for good? Are we seeing goodness within them? And are we seeing ways in which we can assist each other? Ta'awanu bil birri wa taqwa. Yeah, assist each other in bir, in righteousness and taqwa, in God consciousness. Or are we wala ta'awanu bil ismi wal udwan? But don't assist each other in like sin and enmity. Yeah, so how are you seeing other people? Yeah, and how are you perceiving that? So that's it. And then the greatest enemy, without a shadow of a doubt, this is a consensus. The greatest enemy to the human being is his own self. His own self is the biggest enemy. Yeah, his own self is the biggest enemy. And then within that selfish nature, the biggest problem we have is laziness. Yeah, is like apathy. Yeah, a lack of willingness to move forward and do things. Like they say, if there's la haraka la baraka, if there's no movement, there's no blessings, there's no increase. And this is unfortunately what you see if you look at societies, if you look at things from a sociological perspective. What happens? You have societies, any society, like, or you look at any like religious movement or any movement, it'll start off with a lot of energy. Eventually what happens is things start to dissipate, energy starts to go down. And then you end up with what they call the silent majority. The silent majority are people who is basically stakasul. They're no longer socially active. They're no longer active in their communities. They're no longer actively changing society. And the vast majority fall into that. And that's where the problem lies. The vast majority of us have become apathetic. So therefore, the voice of Islam becomes the voice of the minority, because they're the only ones who are speaking and doing anything. The silent majority are silent and apathetic, living their lives, and therefore other people can come into that space. And this, you see this throughout history in all different religious and sociological contexts and societies. The silent majority become apathetic, and then other people who are active come in. So it's our job as Muslims. This is tajdeed, the revival. Why is Imam Ghazali so significant? Because he revived the silent majority, the vast majority of Muslims, mainstream Islam. He came in and he showed how the inner and the outer come together, and it was a call to action, a call to purification, a call to elevation. That's what he did. That's what the Mujaddid does. Now, anybody who's doing that is what we do. He's in the process of tajdeed, of reviving, of renewing the religion. Because the silent majority are the ones. So the silent majority, what's the problem there? It's the castle due to the barrier of the nafs itself. Yeah, the ego itself, the lower self, which is a barrier preventing them from acting and preventing them from moving forward. Okay, so then he mentions now, he's talking about this. Now he looks, he says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, malakum. Malakum, like what's wrong with you? Ya malakum. إِذَا قِيلَ لَكُمْ انْفِرُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَثَّاقَلْتُمْ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ. Yeah, that when it's said to you, go out in the path of God. Yeah, go out in the path of God. You like cling heavily onto the earth. In other words, you very, very, very reluctant. You don't want to go. You don't want to go out. And subhanAllah, look at what's being called to. People are being called to war. They're being called to death, to sacrifice their lives. That's not what we're being called to now. This is why, like, our teacher Sheikh Ibrahim, he said that, you know, like people, and we showed, you know, people like, mashallah, it would be amazing to live at the time of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to live in Madinah Munawwara with the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You walk to your local mosque, and who do you see? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You pray behind the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah, you read Quran, you make zikr, you learn knowledge directly from the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It can't be anything greater than that. He says, but it was a very difficult, very, very difficult time too. It was a very difficult place to be, because you can, as an example, you're going to go to the mosque. So you go to the mosque for your Fajr prayer. Like now you go and pray your Fajr, and then after that it's like, okay, we're going to war now. Khalas is done. The enactment, the decision has been made. We're going. You can't go back and say goodbye to your family. You can't see your children. You may never see your children and your spouse ever again, because you're going to war now, to a very dangerous situation where you're fighting against experienced, trained warriors. 3-1. They've got 3. You've got 3. You've got 1. 10-1. Or you're going to the Romans now, yeah. And there's like 10,000-15,000 of you against 200,000-300,000 experienced fighters who've got better equipment than you. They're better than you in every category. And not only that, you have to go. You have to walk about 1,000 miles, or you have to go on your horse for about 1,000 just to meet them. It's going to take you 2-3 weeks in searing summer heat just to get there. Yeah, and then those who don't go, it's like, why aren't you going? And look at the 3 that were left behind, like it's mentioned in Surah Tawbah. The 3 that are left behind, the 3 that didn't go, it's not like it wasn't hypocrisy. They just didn't go for whatever reason. Yeah, nobody speaks to them for 50 days. It's like a curfew. Yeah, and so it's just like an exile. Sorry. Yeah, they cut off for 50 days. No one speaks to them until the command from Allah comes down. Yeah, and they realized the earth, the earth became restricted for them. Their own selves became restricted until they realized, they recognized there's no refuge from Allah except to Him. And when they have that realization, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala turns to them, and then the whole thing's lifted. So it's a difficult time. I mean, what are our battles today? I mean, what would we say if we were called to Badr? What would we say? I'm going home now. Yeah, I've got a doctor's appointment. Sorry, I've got to, I need to get checked out. Or I've got work. Yeah, I've got to work. Yeah, what would whereas these individuals, they just went. There was no barriers. There was no takasul. There was nothing at all there. They just went and they gave it all. Because our battles are different. Our battles are like this, to wake up for a Fajr class. This is our Badr. This is our Badr. Yeah, our Badr is to wake up in the depths of the night, call upon Allah. Our Badr is between Maghrib and Isha, to pray and call upon Allah at that time. Our Badr is to raise upright children in a difficult context. Our Badr is to be good and patient with our spouses. These are our battles, yeah, that we need to win, and we need to strive. We can't have laziness in this regard. And we need to strive. Yeah, our battle is service of humanity. This is our battleground. And look at that Habib Qadim al-Saqaf. Habib Qadim al-Saqaf, as a young man, he's in his 20s. He's in his 20s and he's, mashallah, very, very intelligent. So in his 20s, he's made the principal of universities. Yeah, 2 different universities he served at. He was the principal, he was the leader, he was the head teacher of the entire university. So he's got all these students under him, hundreds of students. At a young age, because they recognized his intellectual and also his spiritual brilliance. So now look at Habib Qadim al-Saqaf. Whilst he's teaching these students, he serves them. Whilst they sleep, he goes, he takes their clothes, he washes their clothes for them and has them there. He cleans their rooms, he cleans their bathrooms, their toilets that they use. He cleans everything. He's serving them wholeheartedly throughout the night. All night he's there cleaning, taking care of their needs, cooking for them, taking care of all of their needs, hundreds of students. And then when the daytime comes, does he have a rest? No, the daytime he's teaching them. He's teaching them tafsir, he's teaching them hadith, he's teaching them fiqh, he's teaching them tasawwuf. Whatever he's teaching them every 10, 15, 20 different subjects of all of the different books of Islam, the old and the new. Yeah, this is what we mean. These are people who, they have no takasul at all. Yeah, it's been removed from them, and they're just going headlong into the battle. Headlong into that. And this is the battle for us, is to overcome that laziness and become people of action within our context, within our family context, within our neighborhood. That we should be known in our neighborhood as people of good and of action, people who do stuff. Yeah, people who serve others, and people who are always in a state of bringing good. They're always doing something. Like our teacher Sheikh Ibrahim said that minimum, you should always have at least a project going on in your life. Minimum, at least one project. But really, just to have one, I mean, is that all we're capable of? No, we're capable of a lot more. We should have multiple things going on in our lives. We should always be in a constant state of service. Service to our family, yeah, service to our parents, service to our children, yeah, to all of those around us, yeah, to the highest and utmost extent that we have. So that this laziness can be removed, and the nafs is no longer a barrier. The nafs is no longer stopping or preventing us from attaining what we want to attain. Yeah, so he mentioned this, and then he says, إذا وجه الخطاب للرعيل الأول. Yeah, so this is for the first kind of troop. فالأولى لنا أن نتفكر فيه. Yeah, that it's more appropriate for us to reflect and to think deeply about this. Yeah, reflection. And that tafakkur is from the foundational qualities of success for the human being, for the mu'min. The believer is reflecting. As believers, we should be proactive, not reactive. Yeah, I'll say that again, and I hope people will actually write this down and you understand this. We ask Allah for tawfiq to understand this point, that we are proactive, not reactive. We don't react to events. Rather, we create our own events. We create our own societal context, our own situation. Rather, I mean, something goes wrong, then we suddenly, reacting and trying to change the situation. That's too late, because then you're just getting, your buttons are being pushed by events around you. You are in control. But rather, as believers, we reflect, we think ahead, and then we deal with problems before they emerge. Yeah, so like an example of this is we had, and this is many years ago now, unfortunately, there was like an incident where there was a soldier like a British soldier who was murdered on the streets in the UK. This is going back a few years. So the reaction, this is Inspiring Grace, this is our charity, our reaction, and alhamdulillah, it was a good thing that we did, but just as a point of reflection, just like self-criticism, we could say, the faqir self-criticism of what we did ourselves. We did a beautiful campaign called the Roses campaign. So we went out into the streets and we gave out roses to people with a little message, like a little hadith attached, being good to your neighbor, loving for humanity what you love for yourself, those types of universal, beautiful messages of character. We did this, and that's, alhamdulillah, it was a good thing that we did. 500,000 roses maybe we gave at different localities in East Lancashire. Now, but if you look at it, the faqir was reflecting upon this, it's reactive. Why are we doing it? Because an incident has happened and we're reacting to that incident. What's better is to be, like, for example, you give out food parcels all year long, year after year, month after month, regardless of the situation. You have a hot food soup kitchen. Yeah, you go out and you assist the needy within your area. Regardless, that's being proactive. You are just taking steps to do things, and then you are creating your own societal context. So next time when something happens, that can't be these guys. These guys are good people. Yeah, all they've ever done is show me good. They're always doing good things. Yeah, so whoever's done that, the people don't make the link. That's what we call proactive. So as Muslims should be reflecting and thinking deeply about things. Now, when this Burma thing happened a few years ago, yeah, and there was no coverage at all our brothers in Burma being slaughtered, and there was no coverage at all in the news. If you were proactive, you would have been ready for that. You would have been developing links with the media, would have been developing links on a grassroots level with societies, would have had partners, would have had different faith groups, different people united for justice and goodness with us anyway, because that's what we believe in. Whether it's a Muslim or a non-Muslim being oppressed, it doesn't matter. Oppression is wrong, yeah, and to stand for truth. We'd be doing that anyway, so then when Burma comes along, people are like, yeah, he's telling us this is a good man, he's a man who stands for social justice, let's stand with him. Let's get this message out there. This is the difference there. So people of the Prophet ﷺ, he was constantly in a state of thinking and concern and reflection over the community, constantly. لَيْسَتْ لَهُ رَاحَةٌ. He didn't have rest. He was constantly searching for ways to better humanity, to increase and to elevate humanity, no matter who they are, where they are, and when they are. So this idea of reflection, it's more appropriate for us to reflect upon these things than anyone else. So he says that. And then he says, the next ayah, قال سبحانه وتعالى إلا تنفروا يعذبكم عذابا أليما ويستبدل قوما غيركم. He says, if you don't go forth, if you don't take on this task, so if you don't do it, then what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will punish you with a painful punishment, and he will replace you with others. SubhanAllah, look at the time of the Sahaba. I mean, that's tough, isn't it? I mean, look, it's very easy for us, mashallah, very easy. We get times where, mashallah, just do a little bit and it goes a long way. Those days, if you don't go out in war, and if you're not willing to sacrifice your life and your entire being for God, you're going to be punished painfully, and he'll replace you with other people. SubhanAllah. That you're no longer even worthy or good enough. You're no longer worthy or good enough to what? You're not even no longer worthy or good enough to be considered somebody free of punishment. Free of punishment, free of being saved. That we talk about salvation, the basic level. You're not even going to be saved. SubhanAllah. We ask Allah for tawfiq to make us and to give us character traits like those early people, those people who rose to the occasion. Really, they rose to the occasion. That's what they did, didn't they? Things happened, they rose to the occasion. They stood with the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. They stood with him regardless. They stood with him in battles like the Battle of the Trench, when they were hungry and it was cold, and they were exhausted beyond any human limits we can imagine. They stood with him in Uhud. In Uhud, they stood with him. Like the great Anas bin Nadr. Look at Anas bin Nadr, a man who he sees people coming back from a battle, and he says, what's wrong with you? They're dejected. They said, we've heard news. We heard news that the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has died. We heard news that he said, and if he's died, then rise and die like he died. Sacrifice like he gave like he gave. If he's your example, then do what he did. And he gets up and he goes into the thick of the battle. And he looks, as he's going, he sees Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh, the leader of the Ansar, one of the Ansar at the time. One of the tribes of the Ansar. And he says to him, he says, Jannah, Jannah. I can smell Jannah. I smell it on the other side of Uhud. And they said he goes into the battle and he stands for truth, he stands for justice, and he stands for the goodness. He stands for the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and all of these great values that he came for. All of this great beauty that he came with. The gatherer of beauty, the epitome of beauty, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. What he goes and said he goes into battle, he sacrificed. They say that he's unrecognizable. His body's beauty is unrecognizable. His sister recognizes him from his fingertips. His sister recognizes him from his fingertips. These are people who gave on every dimension, whether it was financial, whether it was their time, whether it was their lives. They gave to serve the religion. They gave, and that's why we'll see. If you can't understand their beauty now from hearing these examples, we'll see on the Yawm al-Qiyamah, you'll see them when they're with the Rasul. When they are with the Rasul, they're with him. They're going to be with him for eternity. Isn't it worth giving up a little bit now to be with him for eternity? Isn't it worth giving a little bit now to be with Allah, to be able to gaze upon his face? The face of God, the countenance of God. You can gaze upon the countenance of God. Isn't it worth it? This is the question. This is the eternal question for the human being. Is it not worth going down this path of increase and elevation? Ask Allah for tawfiq to allow us to remove these obstacles that we've placed within ourselves, these obstacles of takassul, these obstacles of laziness that are preventing us from attaining our goals. And we ask Allah to make us from amongst those who strive for this religion. If there's any questions, the further we take questions. Inshallah, so if anybody wants to ask anything, inshallah, you can ask, you can unmute your microphone and ask. or you can put something in the chat box, inshallah. We welcome any comments and any questions, inshallah. How to get rid of hypocrisy? So if you look at hypocrisy is related to the idea of what we call riya, insincerity. Riya is where you're doing out for other people. So in other words, your outward doesn't match your inward. That's hypocrisy. It's when the way you are outwardly doesn't match what you are inwardly. Yeah. So the way we do that, like we mentioned previously, there's everything. There's two cures. There's one is reflection, and then another one is that practical thing. So we reflect. What do we reflect upon? We reflect upon the idea that a realization that our inward is all that matters. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala la yanzur ila ajsadikum wala sawrikum. He doesn't look upon your bodies and your outer forms. Walakin yanzur ila qulubikum wa a'malikum. However, he gazes upon your heart. So there's a recognition that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is gazing, and this can come through different forms of meditation, of reflection. Yeah, like Imam Ahmad Zaruqi mentions in his book Kitab al-I'ana, he says that Imam al-Awza'i, one of the great early imams, what does he say? He says that in the Yawm al-Qiyamah, your entire life will be played out, sa'a bi sa'a, moment by moment. Your whole life will be played out, and you'll have to answer every single thing. So your internal dialogue will come out. So think about that. Why am I being a hypocrite? I'm only harming my own self. I'm going to have to explain this to Allah. Yeah, and to really speak to Allah internally, speak with your Lord, and focus on everything. Like, forget about the action, focus on your intention, and the action will be beautiful. Focus on conversation. Ya Allah, I'm doing this for you. Lillah, lillah. I'm not doing it for anything else. I'm not doing it for anyone else. I'm doing it for you. Yeah, that focus. Just you mentioned a few lessons ago that thinking of a next meal is a sign of it. Subhanallah. Yeah. So what we say is that is a struggle in terms of food that people can, subhanallah, can try to overcome. But really, when we're talking about universal cues is concerned, one thing we notice with our teachers, some of the Habaib and the other teachers that we have the opportunity to meet, is that they're deeply engrossed in love of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, deeply engrossed in love of Allah, and that overpowers and overwhelms their state. They literally, like I mentioned before, they're literally on the verge of tears. The vast majority of the time that you see them, they're on the verge of tears out of just a love and yearning to leave this world. They don't want to be here. They want to be with their Lord. That's really what they want to do. So that's what drives them. Okay, this is an excellent question. How do you recommend becoming proactive when you're really busy with family, work life, etc.? Fantastic. That's a Mashallah, very good question. I like questions like that because we're looking at, let's be real. Yeah? Obviously, we live busy lives. We have things that are going on. So it's an excellent question. Now, what I would say, there's two answers to that. One is by taking on this path. By taking this path, Allah places immense barakah within your time. Yeah, and for the Faqir, personally speaking, I've seen this. Yeah, immense barakah. Like when we're in Tareem, by Allah, in one day in Tareem, I would do more in one day than in 1 month here. Really, in one day. Like the day starts at 3 o'clock. Yeah, so you get up and then you do your tahajjud, you do your 8 rakats, then you read 3 juz of the Quran, and then you spend about 20 minutes of study. Yeah, and then the afkar start for half an hour, and then Fajr. So before Fajr, you've done all that. Then you pray your Fajr, then you have 3 lessons. By 9 o'clock, you're looking back at 3 in the morning thinking, there's no way I could have started my day. There's no way that could have been today. The 3 o'clock, the tahajjud that I read. It must have been a week ago. And then you Dhuhr comes. So Allah places immense barakah within your time through this. And this is haqiqat, and this is experience. I'll give you a practical example. Now the Faqir have come back to this land, and there's khair everywhere. So it's not like but the point is, right now I have my counter, yeah, and I have to do my 100 salawat a day, that, like, my prescription that I've been given. Now, what's ajib is the same salawat, yeah, it would take me about 14 minutes, 15 minutes to do this 100 salawat. Now, I walk, like in the mornings, I do like a 20-minute walk, and I read it 20 minutes, I get to about 40. I don't know, I'm doing the same thing. I'm getting to 40 now, before I was doing 100. There's no doubt that there's secrets within that. Yeah, they say number 1. Number 2, become organized. Now, with your time, become organized. And when you become organized with your time and you have specific times where you do specific things, again, you get so much more done. So much more. Imam al-Ghazali recommends that every moment you have like an action specified for that moment. That's the dominant thing you're going to do at that time, unless, you know, there's like an emergency situation or something like that. Really organize your time and you'll see great barakah. Yeah, organize it. Become careful with the way in which you expend and use your time, and through that you'll see openings. Yeah, out of curiosity, how many? I mean, it varies. So like, it depends. I mean, people will generally, you'll go to sleep between like 10 and 11. Yeah, between 10 and 11. So yeah, it's the long days, alhamdulillah, long days full of barakah. How do we deal with family members who become annoyed with you when you try to spend time turning to Allah? MashaAllah, excellent. Yeah, it's reading the Quran and listening to you and others. How do we deal with that? We deal with that by engaging with our family members and recognizing that that's worship. When we engage with people, we do it in a way that we are attempting to emulate the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. In other words, when we are engaging with people, we imagine the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. How would he behave? How would he interact in this situation? And then we copy that. So it becomes a tremendous act of worship. Yeah, and then internally your heart is constantly saying, this is for Allah alone. Lillah, lillah. I'm only sat here. I'm only doing this for Allah, for Allah, for Allah. You talk to Allah, speak with Allah, and you'll find a sweetness within your interaction that's greater than a sweetness that you would even find in your worship, if you have that sincerity. Number one. Number two, we have specific times of worship. So for example, the time between Maghrib and Isha, and then Tahajjud. These two are the best 2 times of the day. So those times you dedicate them to, if you dedicate those times to worship, our spiritual hal changes, our internal state changes, and then we're able to then engage with people and still be in a state of remembrance of Allah. That's the key, to stay with Allah at all times. This is like the great secret of life. Okay, so that's how we do it. We recognize, and we really, the other thing to recognize is when you're dealing with people, dealing with the annoyances of people in inverted commas is a greater act of worship than anything else. Like our teacher Habib Ali al-Jifri gives an example. He goes, imagine someone, they go away for a week. You go on a retreat, yeah, for a week. And after that week, you end up thinking, mashallah, you know, I've attained this spiritual rank. Yeah. Then you come back and then people start annoying you and you start getting angry, and that is revealing who you are. When you're interacting with other people, it reveals who you are. And it reveals your weaknesses, your deficiencies, which is the greatest blessing you can hope for, is that your deficiencies are revealed. Yeah. Was this prescription specific for you? What was it for? Yeah. So So salawat. Yeah. There's different salawat that are given, in terms of how we should turn to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But this is really something that you would go to the arbab, the spiritual masters for. How do we split our time? Time for self, time for Allah, time for community, etc. So the way the Prophet ﷺ would do it is he would come into his house and then he would have a third of his time for worship, a third of his time for his family, and a third of his time for himself. That time for himself he would give entirely to the community. So that's how he would do when he was in the house. Outside of the house, he was in the state of service to his Lord and service to his people. Yeah, but also that also included his family duties as well. He would go and buy his own shopping and carry his own shopping. And people tried to take it off him, and he said, "No, I am more. It's more appropriate that I carry this." It's the humility of the Rasul. And then finally, we finish on this question: any tips for tonight and making the best of it? Subhanallah. So tonight is the Isra wal Mi'raj. Inshallah ta'ala, I mean, we were hoping to have one of the habaib, but we'll see, inshallah ta'ala. We'll try to make an announcement, put messages out if you can get something organized for tonight. I mean, the purpose of tonight is the same as the purpose of every night. What we recommend people to do is iqbal, to attempt to approach Allah. Yeah, and to attempt to turn to Allah with sincerity. Yeah, have munajat, have intimate conversations with Allah. Intimate conversations with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where you speak directly to him. Yeah, and you beg for change, you beg for elevation, and you beg for this ummah to be transformed. Inshallah, you also beg Allah to change the lacks of the faqir, to change our states, and to make us people worthy of carrying this task of conveying this message to others. Yeah, so really it's a very, very special night. Part of the key is what's called istish'ar, just to perceive, just to have an understanding. Wow, what a night. The openings and the barakah of this night is tremendous. If you can just have that understanding, that approach, that will really help you a lot. Have that understanding and then call upon Allah with like in an intimate way, with intimate discourse with your Lord, inshallah. We ask Allah for tawfiq to accept our worship of this coming night, and that it becomes a night by which our lives turn around, and which we have openings. We also ascend. We also have our own personal mi'raj. We're also able to enter into the divine presence and enter into the prophetic presence. Yeah, it's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity, and really Allah knows best whether we'll have another opportunity like this again. So there's Laylatul Isra wal Mi'raj. If you can, and this is just the advice, if you can, then just don't sleep through the night. Yeah, we can sleep. There's times we can. There's other times we can sleep. Yeah, this night is not a night of sleep. Inshallah, if you can't do that, if that's tough for us, then take some rest and then try to wake up in the last third of the night. But for those who have the himmah, and those who have the, because I'm really, mashallah, the people on this group are elite people, mashallah. Yeah, the people who are involved in the community, like people of high himmah. If you're from amongst those kind of people, then don't sleep tonight. When from Maghrib until Fajr, don't sleep, but rather use that time to call upon your Lord and to ask for the trials and tribulations of this ummah to be revealed, to be removed and to be repealed, and for us to become free again, to be rid of these internal and external viruses. The external virus is there and it's dangerous. The internal virus, the internal diseases that exist within us, to remove these, to remove the diseases of the tongue, backbiting and the like. These things are preventing us from collectively turning back. What's preventing the tawbah back to Allah? The Rajab is about tawbah, and the Isra wal Mi'raj is about the great return, turning back to Allah collectively. What's preventing us is our major sins. Our minor sins, mashallah, I pray we wipe them out. What are the major backbiting? This is what our teachers say. The reason that we can't turn back to Allah is because of backbiting. The reason we can't turn back to Allah is because of arrogance, envy, ostentation. These are major sins, major problems. Arrogance is worse than drinking alcohol. It's worse. And yet, how many of us? Arrogance is to think that you're better than an animal. If you think you're better than a dog, you're arrogant. If you think you're better than a donkey, you're arrogant. Yeah. So if you have that within us, that's what's preventing this ummah from turning back. Yeah, so inshallah, we ask Allah on these kind of nights to remove those types of things. Inshallah, so make du'as for us, make du'as for the ummah, make du'as for our communities, and make du'as for our families, our societies, the whole Muslim polity in general, and then also beyond that, the entire, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides the entire world and is able to reveal the beauty of the entire world is able to see what we see, which is the beauty of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wa sallallahu ta'ala ala sayyidina wa habibina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.